this video we will go over some examples on how to subset data sets in SAS. So my first program is very similar to program 14.1. It's actually the same program. 14.1 in page 195. So in this program we'll learn how to use the where statement to subset a SAS data set. We're going to be working with the retail data set that appears in the SAS help library. So we can click on it to see how it looks. Retail, this one here. So you see it has several variables: the sales, the date, the year, month, and date, and it has a total of 58 observations. So let's say that I want to subset or filter this data set so that I only have the sales that were done in year 1980. Okay, so I only want the observations for which the year is equal to 1980. So how do I do that? Well, it's a very simple program. You have to name your temporary data set, which will store the observations that correspond to year 1980. So I call it year 1980. Then set SAS help.retail, because we're working with a data set that is already inside SAS in one of the libraries, so we use the set statement. Where year equals 1980. So where the variable year equals 1980. And we run that, and then we print it. So let's do it and see what we get. So you see, we get a data set that contains only the observations for which the year is 1980. Now my second program does something a little bit more complicated. That's why it's been called the data is called complicated. Well, basically we're using the same data set, retail, but now we want the observations for which the year is either 1980, 1983, or 1985. So in this vector of values, and the sales are greater to 250. So two conditions, okay? The year has to be one of these three, and the sales needs to be greater than 250. So we have where, we have the same syntax basically, but now where the year is in, so year in, and these are the values, and sales are greater than 250. So let's run that and see what we get. So you see now we have observations for which the year is either 1980, 1983, or 1985, and the sales are all greater than $250. So that's how you subset using where. Where is very, is very handy for subsetting, the where statement. Now, I'm going to be using another data set called the class or named class, which is inside the SAS help library. We have used this data set before to illustrate some tasks. So this is the data set. Is basically, I'm guessing, it's a class of students. You have the gender, you have the age, height, and weight of these 19 students. So let's say that I want to subset the females. Okay, I just want a data set with the females. So I can achieve that in different ways. So one way of doing that is through the if statement. So data females, I'm calling this, females, the data set in which I'm going to store the females only. Set SAS help class, because I'm using this data set that is already in SAS. That's why I use the set statement. If sex, which is the name of the variable, equals female. And see, we have this semicolon because this is a categorical variable, a character variable. Then, so if we run this data set females will contain only the observations inside SAS help class, for which the sex is female. And there you go, only the females. Now you can achieve the same thing using the where statement. You have to write, this is the syntax, okay, so I call it females 1 to distinguish it from females, the previous data set. So again, SAS help.class set SAS help.class, that's the data set. Now parentheses where, and then equals, sex equals female, okay? I could have, used a different variable here. Maybe I could have said where height is greater than something, and it works as well, okay? So let's run this. And again, we get the females. Also, you can create two sets, two separate subsets, right? In the same program. And this little program here illustrates that. This is kind of like parallels to what you could see in your book on page 200, program 14.7. So I'm going to create two data sets, females 2 and males 2. In the females 2, I'm going to store the females. In the males 2, I'm going to store the males. Okay, so set SAS help.class. That is just saying that we're reading from this data set that is already in SAS. Now the syntax is as follows: if sex equals female, then output females 2. That means that if when SAS is reading this, if it finds an observation for which the sex is equal to female, then that observation will be outputted to females, the females 2 data set. Else, if sex is male, then output it to males 2. And now that creates the two data sets. Now I have two proc prints to print the two data sets and see if we achieve what we wanted. And yes, you see now we have a data set with only the females and a data set with only the males. This is females 2, I think we call it, and males 2. So these are some examples on how to subset data sets in SAS using syntax.